Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel, The Movie Canon. I am your host, Giovany, and today I will be talking about my top 10 favorite TV/movie characters of all time. And here's how it's going to work. I will include the creator of the character and the actors who have portrayed them, but if the character has been played by a large number of people, then I will only include the ones we are most familiar with. Also, the characters on my list are there because I enjoy seeing them on the screen due to their complex three-dimensional characteristics, originality, fascination, comedic, and or are portrayed so brilliantly by the actor. I also must say that this list is based on my opinion and there's no one out there that will have the same exact list as mine. Lastly, this list will also include some honorable mentions, and I can already tell you that some of you will probably put those characters on your top 10 list, and that is totally cool. Let me know what your top 10 list looks like in the comments section below. But before we get started, I'm giving away a Funko Pop to a Movie Canon subscriber. The Funko Pop will be a character from my favorite characters list. Honorable mention characters are okay. However, the Funko Pop must be available on Amazon and cannot exceed $10. Also, there must be at least 5 bids from 5 different subscribers in order for me to do this giveaway, and must have a mailing address within the United States. Other than that, read and follow the instructions from the description section of this video. So with that, let's get started.
And here we go.
Alright, so let's get started with my number 10 favorite character of all time. Number 10 is going to be Thanos, portrayed by Josh Brolin, created by Jim Starlin. Now, let me just make this very clear. I never read the comic. Okay, so I'm not going to be able to go into details or dive into the origin or some kind of storylines from comics like The Invisible Iron Man number 55 or which was his first appearance. Nothing like that. I'm just going based on what I've seen so far. So it's really just from what I've seen from the MCU, from the Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, and all the little cameos that he did in Guardians of the Galaxy and all the other movies like the first Guardians of the Galaxy, things like that. So ultimately, Thanos is a very interesting character. He's pretty cool looking. He looks like that McDonald's character Grimace. He's all purple, he's big, but yet he can still inspire fear to his subjects, if you will. Iron Man, Captain America, the Avengers, whatever. He looks kind of silly, he looks kind of weird, but he still looks pretty badass. He has a cool outfit. Of course, we have the Infinity Gauntlet. His quest was always to get those Infinity Stones, and eventually he did. And he's very powerful, very strong. And just to tell you some of the abilities of Thanos, we have superhuman strength, which I kind of already mentioned, speed, stamina, durability, agility, and longevity, superhuman physiology of the Eternals, skilled hand-to-hand combatant, genius level tactician, as we've seen in Infinity War and even Avengers Endgame, a plasma energy projection. And if I remember correctly in the comics, I believe he has a fucking helicopter. That obviously wouldn't make any sense in the MCU, but I just think Thanos was pretty cool. Like, it was very interesting to see him on screen. It was cool to see how he handled the Hulk, probably like one of the most powerful characters in the MCU. You can just go toe to toe with him. Josh Brolin was really able to bring him to life, and I thought that was pretty cool. I think the fact that Josh Brolin did his portrayal is what made Thanos even better. I'm sure there's some other actor that could have done something similar to what Josh Brolin did, but I thought he did a great job in Infinity War and in Endgame. The other thing about Thanos is that his philosophy is not just to be necessarily just a bad guy just for the sake of being the bad guy. He believes that destroying half of the universe is going to help overall the masses. I think that's very different when it comes to a villain. Usually these villains, they have just one focus, something that benefits them directly, whether it be more power, just to rule, basically, like Loki. Let's say Loki, he just wants power, but Thanos is more like, this is what I need to do, this is my goal in life, and I am doing all these things because ultimately, at least in his mind, it's gonna be best for everyone else. So that's why Thanos is my number 10. Alright, so the number 9 spot is gonna go to Joffrey Baratheon, or really it should be Joffrey Lannister. Okay, so this character comes from Game of Thrones, is portrayed by Jack Gleeson, and he portrays him brilliantly, by the way, created by George R.R. Martin. Now again, I didn't read the source material, so again, I'm not going to be able to go into too many details about how it came in the book, but again, this is just looking at from what I've seen in the series, the HBO series. I don't think I've ever experienced so much dislike in a character that I was kind of conflicted on two things. For one, character-wise, I wanted him to die because of the things that he had done to the characters, or the Starks mainly, in the series. So that's one thing. The other thing is, kind of did not want him to get killed because he was just such an entertaining character. Whenever you see him on screen in Game of Thrones, you know some shit's about to happen. He's gonna say something fucking stupid, he's gonna say something fucking bratty, evil, or he's gonna do some shit that is gonna cause someone to die. He's just done so many evil things. I mean, just some really bad things, some horrible, horrible things. And I think the actor Jack Gleeson, he portrayed Joffrey Baratheon really well. And if you remember him, he was in Batman Begins. He was even younger then. Some people forget that he was in that. He was the little kid that was that saw Batman, and when all the shit was going on with the water system or whatever, you never thought that he would be this type of character. Overall, my big props to Jack Gleeson for portraying the character. I remember reading an article that there's just people in the general public that have seen him in person, treating him like if he was Joffrey Baratheon, and treating him pretty badly. But some people don't understand that he's an actor, and he just happened to really portray this character so well that you actually think he is this Joffrey Baratheon character, or Joffrey Lannister, what I should really say. Overall, well done character, well rounded, interesting, entertaining more than anything, portrayed by a great actor. He's awesome. Even though he's evil, he's bad, and you wanted him killed in the series, he was still very cool to see. Interesting to see. So that's why Joffrey Baratheon is my number 9 spot.
Tell me, which do you favor? Your fingers or your tongue?
Your Grace?
Fingers or your tongue? If you got to keep one, which would it be? Oh, I could just cut your throat.
Every man needs hands, Your Grace.
Good. Tongue it is.
Your Grace, please. I won't. Your Grace.
Sir Ilan, who better than you to carry out the sentence?
I beg you, please.
Okay, so my number 8 spot is Tyrion Lannister, another Game of Thrones character, portrayed by Peter Dinklage, and is created by George R.R. Martin. Tyrion Lannister was a character that I didn't quite know what to do with when I first saw him in the first episode of Game of Thrones, and then further on in the first season. The first thing was, we've already kind of learned that the Lannisters are not good people, as you saw in the very first episode of Game of Thrones. So when we came to Tyrion Lannister, I wasn't entirely sure what he was about. Was he a good guy? Was he a bad guy? Like, I just didn't know. And it's very rare that they would portray a character in a series, in a movie, or whatever. It can go either way. Like, you just don't know if he is a villain, or maybe you may think that he will become a villain overall, just the way that he was portrayed. Now, Peter Dinklage did a phenomenal job as Tyrion Lannister. He brought this character to life with such charisma, and that's ultimately what makes this character work so well. He has the ability to get out of sticky situations because of his personality. He's charismatic, he's funny, he's smart, he's intelligent. That's kind of what made this character interesting. Now, I'm going to say something that might be a little controversial, or at least something that most people wouldn't agree with. When it comes to Game of Thrones characters, I already mentioned Joffrey Baratheon, but I think the character that actually kept everything together was Tyrion Lannister. I think that Jon Snow, which is one of the main characters and one of the most beloved characters, was important and essential to the series of Game of Thrones. But personally, I think I would have been more affected had Tyrion Lannister been taken out in the series. I mean, like permanently taken out, because I know Jon Snow was at one point. But I think it was more impactful, or would have been more impactful, if Tyrion Lannister was taken out. This kind of happened as the series progressed. I think if Tyrion Lannister would have been killed or removed from the series in the first season, maybe that wouldn't have worked. But neither would have Jon Snow, really. But I think when it comes to season 4, specifically season 4, you just do not want Tyrion Lannister to go away. And I think he was the main character that really kept this series going. I think a lot of people really want to see him. I know I was looking more forward to seeing Tyrion Lannister on screen. When it comes to the scenes, I would rather see Tyrion Lannister, because you know he's going to say something funny, or he's going to say something witty, or something interesting, or whatever. Jon Snow's cool and all. I'm not saying I don't like Jon Snow, but I think Tyrion Lannister was the guy. He was the Game of Thrones character that I think most people go to watch the series for. And that is why Tyrion Lannister is my number 8. Alright, so my number 7 is Eric Cartman from South Park, portrayed by Trey Parker, created by Trey Parker and Matt Stone. Okay, so Eric Cartman is, or he could be considered to be, the antagonist of the series. He's definitely the funniest one. He's definitely the most controversial one. He's definitely the one that says the most politically incorrect shit than all of the other characters. And you just like seeing Cartman, kind of like Tyrion Lannister, except in animation. And we do kind of know that Eric Cartman is kind of evil in a way. He's psychopathic, he's sociopathic, manipulative as hell. He's probably the most manipulative character I've seen, I think. I can't even think of anyone else. Like, everything he does in the series, he usually has some kind of hidden agenda. He is doing something because he wants to get something. And he's bratty, kind of just like Joffrey Baratheon. He's spoiled, he's narcissistic, arrogant, he's racist, prejudiced, all that stuff. But he's actually pretty smart, pretty intelligent, which is not good when it comes to a person who's not a good person overall. But ultimately, I think Cartman also delivers most of the laughs, or brings out the most laughs in this series. There's a bunch of other cool characters in South Park, but I think at least when I think of South Park, I'm going to think about Eric Cartman. Again, kind of like with what I mentioned about Tyrion Lannister. In a South Park episode, because they have some South Park episodes that don't have Cartman in it. Most of them they do, but we'll have an episode like they focus on, I don't know, maybe on Stan, or they'll focus on Kyle, or sometimes that one episode of Butters, which, I mean, I do like those characters, but I do feel that it suffers a bit. You do want to hear and see what Eric Cartman is going to do next. What shit is he going to do? What evil thing is he going to try to manipulate? What kind of scheme he's trying to do to get something back. Either it's Shakey's Parlor, $10 million, or whatever. Okay, so here are some of the things that Eric Cartman has done to his fellow man in South Park. Now, this list I did get it from Screen Rant, so I'm just going to read what they have here, but I do remember seeing all these. So here are some of the things Cartman has done. He has kidnapped Butters because he wanted to go to some fucking restaurant, and it's a whole thing with it. Casa Bonita. If you've seen that episode, you know what I'm talking about. He sells junk food to kids at fat camp. That's another thing. He attempts to exterminate all of the non-ginger kids. He profits off of crack babies playing with balls of crack. He pretends to have Tourette syndrome. He convicts random people of murder. He convinces his anger management counselor's wife to kill herself. He holds people hostage in a Chinese restaurant. He pretends to have a developmental disability so that he can play the Special Olympics and win, although he didn't win. He tries to kill his mom, and he was trying to have his friends help him with it. He convinces everyone that the new Muslim student is a terrorist. He befriends a Dark Lord and almost destroys the world. He crashes 2 planes and shoots Token. He convinces Bill Clinton to declare the South as the winner of the Civil War. He spitefully gives Kyle AIDS. He emulates Hitler and tries to get rid of the Jewish community. And lastly, he makes Scott Tenorman eat his own parents. And there's some crazy evil shit Eric Cartman has done. Unfortunately, it was pretty entertaining.
Do you like it? Do you like it, Scott? I call it Mr. and Mrs. Tenorman chili.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Nya, 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 nya. I made you eat your parents. Nya, 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 nya.
Okay, my number 6 is Eric Lannister. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing this. Also known as Magneto from X-Men. X-Men comics, X-Men films, all of it. Portrayed by Ian McKellen and Michael Fassbender. Created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. I'm not going to get into too many details about Magneto, but he is pretty high up on my list. Only because I always thought he was a pretty cool looking character. He is an antagonist. Sometimes he's seen as a full-on villain, but I think he's more like an antagonist. He's a very powerful mutant from in the X-Men comics and the X-Men storyline. He has the ability to generate and control magnetic fields. This character is kind of loosely based on Malcolm X, just like Professor X is kind of loosely based on MLK, Martin Luther King Jr. His character's early history has been compared with civil rights, like I said, kind of like Malcolm X. And he is a Holocaust survivor, which I think kind of adds a lot of layers to this character, because you kind of understand why Magneto is so against humankind, because he has seen what humans have done to him and his family and other human beings. So he has this view of how humans really are to each other, and you kind of can sympathize with that. Again, this difference is that Magneto is a very powerful mutant, very powerful character, and both actors that portray Magneto have been portrayed brilliantly. Ian McKellen, Michael Fassbender, really, really good actors. Both of them, both Oscar nominees. They did a really good job in portraying the character. One is an older Magneto, some was a younger Magneto. They both did it just as good, and I wouldn't even know which one I would pick over the other, because they both did as equally good. So just like some of the other villains that we've seen on this list, or just some villains in general, kind of like Thanos, for example. He believes that his philosophy or the reason why he's doing things are good things, ultimately. Even that it is to destroy humankind, people who are not mutants. But he feels that all humans are just like what he saw in the Holocaust. And you can kind of, like I said, you're going to sympathize with that. But so it's not just some random villain that wants to take over the world exactly. But there's some more layers there. There's more elements to discover. And it's a pretty cool character. So with that, that's why Magneto is my number 6. Alright, so my number 5 spot is the one and only Homer Simpson. Appears on The Simpsons. Portrayed by Dan Castellaneta. Created by Matt Groening. I think everyone likes Homer Simpson in one form or another. He is the idiotic dad of Bart, Lisa, and Maggie Simpson, and he is known as the town's dumbest person and drunkest, only second to Barney Gumble. He has delivered one of the funniest dialogues in TV history, despite his ability to get himself in situations that any other individual could easily get out of or not get into them in the first place. Homer Simpson always finds a way out, mainly due to luck. He has a well-known catchphrase, and his famous white shirt and blue pants is instantly recognizable. This, of course, is because of Homer's ability to be likable. He's the character you root for, even though you know there are other ways, smarter ways, to get what he wants. However, I must say that Homer Simpson hasn't been as funny in recent years, but that's mainly because of the overall quality of the show. I do have a sense of nostalgia when it comes to Homer Simpson, because I've been watching The Simpsons since I can remember. I think since I was about 5 years old that I remember seeing him. And they're always hilarious when he does his scream, because he's usually screaming about something. It has been on air for over 30 years after all, so Homer Simpson is my number 5 top favorite character of all time.
What's going on here? I'm so bulgy. My stomach sticks way out in front and my...
Alright, so moving on to the number 4 spot, we have Peter Parker, SpiderMan. He is portrayed by a few actors. We have most currently is Tom Holland. We have Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. He was created by Stan Lee. He appeared in Amazing Fantasy number 15 back in 1962. And the reason why I like Peter Parker, Spider-Man, is because he's one of those superhero characters that I think most people can really relate to, in comparison to, let's say, Superman. You know, Superman comes from outer space. He has all these amazing powers, and he's basically unbeatable. You can't really too much to Superman unless he's exposed to kryptonite. But Spider-Man he was a kid where he first got bitten by a spider that gave him all his powers. He goes to school, high school, graduates, gets a job, goes to college, all that stuff. Those are things that we could resonate with, things that we could relate to, because these are the things that most people do. Happens to have these amazing Spider-Man abilities, strength, and he has a cool costume. His storyline or his origin is also something that some people could relate to. He experiences loss when his Uncle Ben passes away, and it turns out that he could have prevented it, which kind of leads him to feel guilt and do what he ends up doing and becoming this superhero. And I think he's probably the most human comic book character, or most human superhero character that I've ever seen. And I just kind of grew up with Spider-Man and Peter Parker, and I just thought he was a very, very cool character. I always like seeing whatever film that he's in, of all the films that he has come out in, or all the movies that he's appeared in. They're usually pretty good movies, with a few exceptions. Spider-Man 3 for one. But overall, he's a very interesting character, very, very cool. And that is why Peter Parker, Spider-Man, is my number 4 favorite character of all time. Alright, so now we're getting to my top 3 favorite characters of all time. And at the number 3 spot, we have the Joker from the Batman comics, TV, and movies. The Joker has been portrayed by Heath Ledger, Jack Nicholson, Jared Leto, Mark Hamill, Cesar Romero, and more recently, Joaquin Phoenix. Created by Bill Finger, Bob Kane, and Jerry Robinson. The Joker is known as Batman's biggest nemesis. And what makes him so interesting? Well, here are some reasons. The Joker possesses no superhuman abilities. Instead, he uses his expertise and chemical engineering to develop poisonous or lethal concoctions and thematic weaponry, including razor-tipped playing cards, deadly joy buzzers, and acid-spraying lapel flowers. I always felt that the Joker presented this very threatening environment wherever he goes, and I enjoy his trickster and sadistic ways as a comic book villain. He is psychotic and is actually pretty funny despite his very dark, humorous jokes. The character has an interesting look with his purple suit and green hair. He stands out and yet is always to be the mastermind in many of his evil plots. I enjoy this character because he is very unpredictable, which gives Batman a run for his money. Any actor who can portray the Joker and convey the roots of what the character is about is instantly a top caliber actor. Not just anyone can play the Joker, and this is why I'm very curious to see how Joaquin Phoenix interprets his character as the Joker. And lastly, we do not know much about the Joker. Sure, sort of a origin was created for him years after his creation, but he is one of those characters that are fascinating to learn about. But at the same time, we kind of want to keep that a mystery. It makes his existence that much compelling. And this is why the Joker is my number 3 favorite character of all time.
How about a magic trick? I'm gonna make this pencil disappear. Ta-da! It's gone.
Alright, so my number 2 spot goes to one of the most iconic villain characters in cinematic history, Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, portrayed by James Earl Jones, Hayden Christensen, Jake Lloyd, David Prowse, Sebastian Shaw, and Spencer Wilding. Created by George Lucas in what he described his episodic Star Wars films as the tragedy of Darth Vader. So Darth Vader was a Jedi Knight once upon a time, but was lured by the dark side. What made this character so interesting to me is a few things. Number 1, his look. The costume and his sort of breathing mask is now recognizable around the world, and it's something unique I hadn't seen before. This is what one source described Darth Vader's design to be when creating the character. George Lucas once said he would like to have a very tall, dark, fluttering figure that had a spooky feeling like it came in on the wind. This character is one of the most complex ones. At the beginning of his story arc, he is a good person, just trying to survive as best he can, and while later in life becoming respected and powerful. His future became dark and turned him into one of the most evil characters in the history of cinema. And while we all know of Darth Vader or Anakin Skywalker's story, this wasn't the case for many decades, as he remained a very mysterious character. Why was Darth Vader wearing that costume and breathing mask? What made him evil? What was his past like? Why is he so powerful? What was his relationship with Obi-Wan Kenobi really like? All these questions and very few characters can inspire such interest in what normally would come as a two-dimensional character. Ultimately, Darth Vader, or Anakin Skywalker, is an awesome character and my number 2 favorite character of all time. Actually, I just noticed how many villains I have on my list, and no women either. Yet. Before we get to the number 1 spot, here are some honorable mentions that didn't quite make the cut, but might have been at one point. Han Solo, portrayed by Harrison Ford and Alden Ehrenreich, Star Wars universe, created by George Lucas. Thomas Anderson, Neo, portrayed by Keanu Reeves, The Matrix universe, created by the Wachowski sisters. Wolverine, or James Howlett, or Logan, portrayed by Hugh Jackman, the X-Men universe / comics. Al Bundy, portrayed by Ed O'Neill, created by Michael G. Moy and Ron Levitt, Married with Children. Freddy Krueger, portrayed by Robert Englund and Jackie Earle Haley, created by Wes Craven, A Nightmare on Elm Street universe. Miranda Priestley, portrayed by Meryl Streep, created by Lauren Weisberger from The Devil Wears Prada. And lastly, Michael Scott, portrayed by Steve Carell, based on David Brent, which was created by Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant. And finally, my number 1 character of all time is Bruce Wayne, the Batman, portrayed by Christian Bale, Michael Keaton, Kevin Conroy, Val Kilmer, George Clooney, Adam West, more recently Ben Affleck, and the yet to be seen on the big screen, Robert Pattinson. As one of my favorite characters growing up, Batman has always been my favorite superhero character and character overall because he was just so damn cool. He has no superpower abilities, and yet he can still kick some serious ass. He's a billionaire who has suffered the loss of his parents at a really young age and was able to face his fears. He did not have to become the Dark Knight or the Caped Crusader. He has it all. But he still follows a code and a promise that has led his life until the very end. He knows how to play both parts of his lifestyle, both as the Batman and Bruce Wayne. He has a cool ass costume, badass car, and gadgets, and is always able to defeat some of the greatest nemesis any character has ever encountered, such as the Joker, Riddler, Penguin, Bane, etc. And most importantly, Batman is human, and he does not always win. Go Batman. So that concludes my podcast style video of my top 10 favorite TV movie characters of all time. Tell me what your list is. Put it on the comment section below. Don't forget I'm doing a Funko Pop giveaway to a Movie Canon subscriber. Make sure to follow the instructions and have a mailing address within the United States. Thank you all for watching and listening, and I'll see you guys next time.